say that you would die if you saw God's face. Then it came to her. If this is God, then I'm already dead, and it won't matter. She opened her eyes, prepared to meet her Maker. Instead, she met the compassionate gaze of dark brown eyes. The man had a gentleness about him as he leaned over her to touch her forehead.
"I say, seems the fever is gone. You'll soon be right as rain."
His dark brown mustache twitched ever so slightly as he offered her a smile. "What?" Miranda barely croaked the word out. The man patted her on the head as if she were a small child.
"Nellie will fix you right up. You'll see. She's quite gifted in the ways of healing."
Miranda wanted to question the man, but had no energy to do so. She watched in silence as he turned to the woman. His alabaster skin was quite the contrast to the older woman's native complexion. His dark hair had a haphazard lay to it. Perhaps he had just awakened, or perhaps he wasn't given to worrying over appearances.
"I've prepared the herbs you asked for, Nellie. That should help considerably. Shall I put a pot of water on to boil?"
The old woman nodded and followed the man. Miranda wanted to call out to them and beg them not to leave her, but again her voice failed her. She tried to remember what had happened to her. How did I get here? But even as she worked at the foggy memories, Miranda knew only one thing for certain. This wasn't heaven. She wasn't dead. Thomas Edward Davenport, Teddy to his friends, turned from the ancient Indian woman and went back to his work table. He had hoped to have a better showing for a summer's worth of work, but after categorizing the plants and herbs he'd gathered, Teddy was rather disappointed. He would spend the winter recording and cataloging his finds for the botanical research book he intended to produce. This was his life's work that had brought him to the vast regions of the Canadian provinces. Leaving his beloved England behind had been a difficult task, but after the death of his mother, Teddy had no real reason to remain. His father had died years before, succumbing to a terrible round of influenza. And while English soil might hold the bodies of his dearly departed parents, Teddy knew their souls were safely in heaven with God. He glanced across the cabin room and watched Nellie spooning tea into the young woman's mouth. Teddy couldn't help but wonder about the woman. Local natives had brought the half-drowned creature to his door, knowing Nellie had a gift for healing. Teddy could hardly turn the unconscious woman away, but the interruption was most unwelcome. He had no time for diversions. His work would suffer, had already suffered, because of this stranger's arrival. Teddy toyed with a bit of dried alpine geranium. Who is she? He wondered. No doubt she was one of the thousands who had come north with their hearts set on gold. So many parties had been lost upon the wild and reckless waters of the Yukon. The shores along the lakes and rivers were littered with the sad reminders of the invasion from the south. Teddy wished with all his heart that the strangers would all return to wherever they had come from. In the 5 years he'd been at work in the Yukon, he'd known a tranquil and graceful land. That tranquility, however, was greatly diminished in the wake of the Klondike gold rush.
"She sleep again, but not so long, I think,"
Nellie said, coming to the table where Teddy worked only half-heartedly.
"I think she much better."
Teddy nodded.
"Yes, I believe you are right." "I make you supper,"
Nellie said, and walked back to the stove without another word. Teddy required the old woman's presence, because without her he simply lost track of time and forgot to eat, or sometimes to sleep. His work consumed him. It was a thing of great interest and passion, but it was also a challenge that he could not seem to shake. His father had always loved plant life, and his desire to come to North America for the research of Canadian vegetation was a dream Teddy intended to see through to fruition. It was a sort of legacy Teddy would leave in honor of his father. Albert Davenport had been very much a dreamer. Teddy's mother had found his love of plants annoying, for it had taken them from her beloved estate outside of London and plunged them into the heart of Cornwall. Eugenia Davenport would endure her husband's sojourns to the country for a time.